And we are back from the outstanding episode of the Square Table Degenerates. Today we are joined by actor and narrator, Mr. Robert Clotworthy. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing okay. It's not
hello,
bad.
Cleveland. Hello, Cleveland.
Right, Cleveland's a good town. We got a lot of Brits watching too. So say hello to the UK guys. UK guys are coming in hot today. Right, Cleveland's a good town. Oh, we got is that me or you? One of us might be me.
Oh.
You guys are coming in hot today. See if you got the YouTube show pulled up on another tab. That might be it. Is that me or you? One of us might
something. I don't know, man. All of a sudden it went haywire.
If you got the YouTube show pulled up on another. Do you have more than one tab open?
Do I? Maybe something. I think so, man. All of a sudden it went haywire. Let me see. Did I do that?
Do you have more than one tab open?
Do I? Let me see. Dang.
Close out the YouTube window. Keep StreamYard open.
Yeah. Did I do that? It's probably my fault. Did that help?
Yeah, we're good now.
Good. So, I can do voiceover, but when it comes to electronics and working the computer, not so good. Is it possible that I screwed up? Yes.
Well, that's everybody. When you think about it, I mean, everybody wants to come up here and talk and, just do this and that. But how many people know how to work the computer, know how to work the camera, the mic? There's a lot more that goes into it than just talking. I mean, editing video, that's a hard one. It's a hard one, Robert. All right. So when you were growing up,
yeah,
did you want to get into Hollywood and acting when you were young? What was your earliest aspiration?
Yeah, I grew up in Los Angeles in Southern California. My father was in the advertising business. He worked for a company called BBD&O, which is a big ad agency based out of New York, and they have satellite offices all around the world. And as a kid, he was a producer of radio commercials. That was his major thing. And I would go with him as a kid to the studio and see what were my, I guess, childhood cartoon heroes. We all have those characters that we watch when we were little kids, and I would go in the studio and I'd actually get to meet them and see them, and it instilled this love of voiceover for me. And I would bug my father for years and years to allow me to try to get into the business. Finally, he relented at the age of 15. And I met with some agents, got with an agent, and next thing you know, I mean, literally the first audition I went on for a commercial I booked, and the third I booked, and fifth, it was like I was just off to the races. So to answer your question, yeah, it was always something I wanted to do, and it's knock on wood, after all these years, I'm still doing it.
Now, I've watched a couple shows. I've been doing some research, trying to do some research, anyways.
Yeah.
And I heard you got into this the Gaines Burgers and Cheese dog food commercial. Was that the first commercial?
That's funny. Yeah, it was. It's here's the funny. I learned a lot working on that commercial. I had long hair because it was at that period of time, that was when everybody was wearing their hair long, and they asked me if I would cut my hair, and I said sure, and asked them why, and they said, well, the commercial was me with this little dog. They said, well, people would think you'd be giving drugs to the dog. So I said, okay, I'll cut my hair. And I go down, I'm 15 years old doing this commercial. And my father had gotten me tickets, I guess for me and my brothers, to go see actually The Who in concert in LA. And they were my favorite band at the time. And the commercial went a second day, because when you're under 18, they could only work you, I think it was like 6 hours a day, and you had to have 3 hours of schooling. So it was limited as to what you could do. So it went into a second day, and my father told me, he says, well, you're working tomorrow, so you can't go to the concert tonight. I said, what? He said, no, you got to be responsible. You got a job, you're working, so you got to get up early. Sorry. So I learned that important lesson at an early age, that you have to sacrifice a bit for the things that you want. And I never forgave him for that, by the way. But
dude, I hadn't heard about. I remember those back in. We had this dog named Axel back in the 90s when we were growing up, and I remember those burger patties when I saw that. So that was fun. Now I got to ask you though, how long was this commercial? Was it like a 19-minute commercial? Why does it take 6 hours?
No. It was like a 60-second spot, and the premise of the commercial was I remember the casting when I went to wardrobe. They wanted to put me in an ill-fitting suit. They wanted, because it was an adult party at my parents' house, and I was the teenage kid, and really felt out of place at the party because all the adults are doing whatever they're doing. And I look over and I see my dog like in the doorway. And so I go to where my dog is, and we're in the kitchen, and of course the dog jumps up on me and kisses me, and I get him a Gainsburger, put it in a bowl, and I'm petting him while he's eating. And then of course the adults are wondering where I'm at, and they look in, and there's all these people looking and smiling while I'm feeding my dog. So that was the premise of the spot.
That's awesome, man.
Like,
Now,
60 seconds.
it's just a fact, because I talked to a couple people, about commercials, because
Yeah.
the filming time just fascinates me. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember I had on a guy who did a commercial where it was a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers commercial, and they were introducing the new Power Ranger. I was like, how long did the shoot take? He's like 12 hours. I'm like, dude, this is like a minute and 30 seconds. What are they doing for all that time? Just walking around, just is everybody good? Everybody good? I mean, how many it would just, that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize about Hollywood, is that just the retakes and the mundaneness and
Yeah, it's a lot of sitting around, a lot of waiting, but when you're working, it's really intense work, and people have a terrific work ethic, because the day starts at 7 a.m. I mean, that's when you're supposed to arrive on set. You don't kind of cruise in at 10 or 11. I just did a commercial a couple of weeks ago for a product called Native Deodorant, and we did a day where we actually rehearsed, and then the day that we shot all day. I mean, we started at 7 in the morning, and I think I finally left there around 7 o'clock at night. So it was a 12-hour day. And a lot of it is because it's just, a commercial. They try to get as much coverage as they can, and coverage meaning as many camera angles as they possibly can. If you're working on a TV show, for example, and I've done a lot of those, where the day is, they have to move. They have several scenes that they may want to shoot that day. They can't afford to sit there and spend a day just on one scene. So they have to be a little bit more efficient. So with that, you're moving on a little bit quicker. With a film, a major film, oftentimes it's a little bit more relaxed. The pacing is. I did a film a couple of years ago with Bradley Cooper and Clint Eastwood, American Sniper, and that.
oh, we're getting into some American Sniper.
Yeah,
we
spent
I
like
just watched that before I watched that earlier today.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's a good one.
Don't worry about American Sniper. We're gonna get into some of that. Now, talking about the TV shows, I was going through your wiki, your IMDb. I mean, it said you had so many shows that I mean, some of these predate a lot of them from my friends, but you got MASH, The Rockford Files, Three's Company, etc.
Yeah.
First off, how did you get so many roles back then? Was it easier or harder to get them now, as opposed to back then?
I think it was easier then, because now everything as soon as they started videotaping auditions, it changed things. In the old days, you would go to a casting office, and they would only, I mean, how much time could they possibly spend? How many people could you see in a few hours? 15, 20 people? Or even on a TV show, they may only bring in between 5 and 10 to audition for a certain part. And so you had a pretty good chance of getting the gig. And, I was also, when I first started, when I turned 18, I looked younger than 18. So I could still play those 15, 16, 17-year-olds. But now that I was 18, they could work me longer hours. I was an adult. So that was a big advantage. And I just had, I guess, enough talent and a little bit of a quirky look that was, I don't want to say in demand, but I was able to work on a lot of shows. I mean, goodness, I can't even remember all of them. Columbo and Rockford Files and Tequila and Bonetti and MASH and Three's Company, and it just goes on and on and on. It's Police Story, Policewoman, you name it. I was on it.
Well, you do so many shows, you just kind of, after a while, you just kind of forget. And I know that sounds cliche, but even like with this show, you could do it every week. There's no break. We're at like 250 some shows now. I mean, I've had on over, I don't know how many celebrities that even equals 250. There's one or two you're going to forget along the lines. I mean, 10 years from now, if I'm still doing this, I'll be like, oh yeah, I had that guy on when they, you're doing the Ancient Aliens Revisited or something like that. You know what I mean?
but it's a lot of fun working on those shows. The first, I guess, TV show I was ever on was a thing called Emergency. I think they still have it in reruns. And I played, I think the character was the hamburger eating teen, where the guys get a call, Randy Mantooth and I can't remember what the other fellow's name is, get a call because they're paramedics and they rush down to this hamburger stand where this big, muscular, beefy football player type guy is writhing in pain because he ate, 27 hamburgers or something because it was a hamburger eating contest. And they go, well, at least he won. And I stand in and go, no, I won. I ate 28 and I'm like this rail thin guy who was able to put away the burgers. So it was a cute little bit, but they put me in a tie-dyed shirt and it was the 70s and kind of a hippie look. So it was kind of cool.
Now, were there any shows back from the 70s and the 80s that really stick out as like really fun back then? Any legendary party tales, or were you just kind of in and out? You got any kind of cool, oh yeah, I was hanging out with this guy and he was just party all the time, anything like that?
Well, I'll tell you, when I worked on Emergencies, a funny story. It was kind of an awakening for me because I had this image that in Hollywood, you get a TV series and you're going to really work hard and focus and pay attention and all this kind of stuff. And it's, to actually be in that position, I have a really good work ethic. So I was just thinking, okay, this is what you do. And at that time, it was a Universal Studios was the producer of the show. And they had was weird, was at the tail end of when they had the actors under contract. They still had some contract players. And if you were a contract player for a studio, basically they would just plug you into different shows. They'd say, show up here on Tuesday, you're going to be this, or show up here on Wednesday, and you're doing that. And they had these fleet of limousines, and they weren't like really like tricked out limos. It was just a bunch of Cadillac limos that were, I guess base limos, if you can imagine that. It was just an extended Cadillac. And so you'd show up to the studio and then they would drive you to wherever the location was in a limo. Even if you lived closer to the location than the studio, you still had to go to the studio, and they drove you in a limo. So I'm there on the set with all these other young people waiting for the 2 stars to arrive. And this limo pulls up and the 2 stars show up. And I'm thinking, oh, these guys are regulars on a series. How incredible. And what was amazing to me is that they didn't know where they were. They kind of stumbled out. Okay, what are we doing? What's the scene? Anybody got a script? Yeah. What are my lines? Okay. Where are we going to do this? It was a weird kind of a disconnect. They were able to do it. I mean, they did the scene, they knocked it out. They were professional enough to do it, but it was still a little bit of an eye-opening moment for me to see how they were dealing with that aspect of what was success. I mean, I don't think I would have done that. I mean, with Ancient Aliens, I've done 250 episodes. I still treat it as if I'm auditioning for it. I give it 110%. I don't phone it in. I don't take it lightly. I perform to the best of my ability each and every time. So that may be me.
Well, you got it. You have to be like that in entertainment, or in my opinion, this is my opinion. Other opinions may vary. It's an insult to the platform, to the medium. Like, people are tuning in to see me interview people every week. If I just came up here and said, "Oh, so what do you think about the baseball?" You just generic stock questions. They're not going to tune in. They can get entertainment. They can talk to subs on any show. They're going to tune in here because they like looking at Joey Edibles. They like the fun guests we bring in. And I try to bring the heat all the time. Is every show going to be a 10? No. But, like you said, it's like, because you never know who could be watching. What if, some big Hollywood producer's like, oh, wow, this guy's cool. He's interviewing awesome people. You never know when people are watching. So you always got to represent your brand. Your brand is yourself, too. You've got to represent that.
And also, when we do something like this, or you do something on camera, once it's there, it's that way forever. You can't go back and redo the show. You can't redo this episode. So if you're lazy and you're kind of having an off time, you're just not paying attention, that's what you're going to present. I mean, I put on a shirt for you. I had a T-shirt on. I thought, you know what? I'm not looking good enough. I know that this is a style first episode. It's all about, we
got style over here. We got style over here, brother. We got style for miles, man. Style for miles. Now, is there any show you considered, any one moment you consider as like a big break, or is this, you've always been just a guy going to a job?
I call myself a journeyman actor. I mean, I've had wonderful opportunity. I've worked with incredible people. I mean, one of the first commercials I ever did, I worked with Peter Sellers. I mean, are you serious? Come on, really? I did an episode of the Colbys with Charlton Heston. I've I've been able to. I'm the voice of Charlie and Charlie's Angels in the latest movie version of it. I've I've got Ancient Aliens, which is going into our what 18th, 19th season. I've worked with Bradley Cooper and Clint Eastwood. I've starred in shows. I've been supporting players in shows. I've got to travel. I worked with Peter Falk in an episode of Columbo. It's each one has its own unique memory for me. Some some are not as great as others. Sometimes where the star of the show is a little bit of a, for lack of a better word, a little bit of a prick, or not as serious as I would have thought they should be. But you compare that to working with Clint Eastwood and Bradley Cooper, who are two of the, a Clint Eastwood. Okay, come on, it's freaking Clint Eastwood. Bradley Cooper, who was nominated for an Oscar for his performance, and I get the opportunity of working with the three of them. It's just us three in a room. That's pretty cool. That's pretty nice. But it takes a while to get into that position. Not everybody, just kind of falls into that. Every once in a while you get lucky, but you have to put in a lot of work to be in the position where you're even considered for something like that.
100%. And Kip, and if you guys got a question about stuff, don't worry. We're going in order. I'll get to everybody's question. A lot of them are redundant, but a lot of them are just not flowing with the thing. But we'll get it. Now, did this question right here from BC up in British Columbia? This correlates with my next question, actually. This is perfect. At what point did you realize you had that narrator type voice, like that Shadow Stevens kind of soothing voice? And did you like, because you started when you were 15? Was your voice already established when you were 15?
It's funny. If you look at this episode of, say, Columbo that I did, and I think I was maybe 16 or 17 when I did it. It's a really, really good episode. It's one of everybody's favorite Columbos of all time. It stars Patrick McGowan, and it takes place at this military academy. And I am a character called the Boodle Boy, which I don't even think exists in the military. And my job is to bring the coffee to the commandant, which was Patrick McGowan, each morning. So I have this nice little scene with him where we're talking, and I'm listening to my voice going, wow, did I really sound like that when I was a kid? It was a deeper voice, but it was kind of weird. I don't know that I particularly liked it that much, but as a kid, one thing that I did do was I liked reading out loud. And I was just one of those people that, I have a book, and instead of, I try to read it out loud without having a clue as to where the story was going to go. So I built up a great muscle of being able to cold read and be able to come up with some kind of an interpretation and a performance right away. And when I've been acting on camera, done voiceover occasionally every once in a while over all these years. And then about 15, 20 years ago, I switched to a new agency, and I thought, you know what? When you go to a new agency, it's like moving to a new town because nobody knows you there. You can be anything you want to be. Everybody's going to give you an opportunity. So I thought, you know what? I'd like to do some narration. I like reading out loud. Let's put that together. So I put together a simple demo. They put it on their website, and the first gig I got, literally within, I think, maybe a week or two of putting it up there, was working for George Lucas on a documentary on the making of the original Star Wars trilogy. Nice. And it was a big job. I mean, it was a 2.5-hour documentary. Everybody that was anybody is in that documentary. If you haven't seen it, Empire Dreams, it's phenomenal. It was nominated for an Emmy. It's a truly, truly amazing documentary on the making of the films, I should say. And from that, it just kind of started, I guess the dominoes started to fall. I just started getting more and more when it came to narration. I understand why my voice is popular, because in voiceover we have something called a vocal signature, where somebody describes your voice, If
Mhm.
and they try to do it in just a couple of sentences. Like you, it would be like he's tough, no nonsense, but gravelly sports fan. Okay. That would be like, okay, well, now we know who this guy is. Well, this casting director came up with a great signature for me. She said, approachable intelligence. Now that doesn't mean that I'm actually bright. I could be as dumb as a box of doorknobs, but I sound like I know what I'm talking about. And the way that I convey it is very approachable. It's not like a professor. You go to a school and somebody's giving you a lecture and you're sitting there like this. No, I'm kind of drawing you in a little bit. So I understand that about my voice and I use it. And that's kind of what's taken me on this ride, which has been amazing.
Now, do you have anybody you look up to in the voiceover business? Anybody, any early actors, Mel Blanc, stuff
Oh
like that,
man,
to where
yeah.
your inspiration for being a voiceover?
Oh yeah, it's when I've always loved storytellers, and um, there's this special aspect to telling a story. It's something that goes back to when we were just cave people around sitting around a campfire, and maybe the hunters come back and they describe what happened to them that day when they were out on the hunt, and everybody listens to it, and those stories get passed down. It was way before they were ever written down. So there's this long history of that goes to this day. I am now in that position that our ancestors were in, you know, thousands of years ago. As far as current day narrators, um, or voice people, there's oh my goodness, I'm growing up. It would have been like Mel Blanc. It would have been June Foray. It would have been Dawes Butler. These for me, these were the great cartoon characters, the great voice actors. And current day, of course, you got to think of Morgan Freeman. You think of the great people that can tell a story. Liev Schreiber, who is just knocks me, knocks me out every time I listen to him. It's it's a unique occupation, and it takes an innate ability to understand, I think, the human psyche and what interests people, and to be able to connect on a very special level. Because when you listen to something, it kind of gets into your brain in a very unique way. If you see me, like when you're seeing me now, some people probably think, "Wow, I thought he was going to look different. I thought he'd be taller. I thought have dark hair." I mean, there's all this stuff, and you're trying to get beyond what I look like to where I'm listening, where I what I sound like. But when you're just listening to a show like Ancient Aliens or Curse of O'Connell, and you're not thinking about what I look like, my voice gets into your head. Everybody's voice, and that's where the theater of the mind is. That's where the creativity and everything, just the picture starts being painted. So it's a very special gift.
Now,
Not that,
why do this is maybe this is my observing things, but why
yeah.
does everybody seemingly want to get into voiceover work? Like I'm in a bunch of random groups on YouTube, for example, or on Facebook, and some people will be like, "Oh, can anybody recommend a voiceover guy or how to get into voiceover?" And there'll be 30 listings like in 2 seconds. Is it just because the barrier to entry is just basically all you need is a computer, or what's the deal
Well,
there?
I'll tell you what it is. There's a misconception there, amongst a lot of people, that all you need is a good voice. Well, a good voice is, I mean, that's very there's not that's not specific. That's it's kind of a general. There's a lot of, I mean, what makes a good voice? Maybe you think I have a nice voice, and you say, well, he's warm, he's friendly, he's approachable, soothing to listen to. Okay, what about Gilbert Gottfried? He made a ton of money in voiceover. What about you? You
Right,
know,
right.
what the trick is, people think all you need to have is a voice. To be a good voice actor, you need to be a really good actor. The people that I know that are successful, that are in voice, are phenomenal actors. And I'm not talking about people that have been in a high school play. I'm talking about people, I've worked with people that are nominated for Olivier Awards, which is the UK equivalent of a Tony Award, starred on Broadway, graduates of the Yale Drama School. I mean, people that have phenomenal track records as far as acting is concerned, because what you need more than anything, more than a nice voice, is you need the ability to speak your truth, to be honest, whatever that is. You need to understand who you are. And a lot of people don't want to take that trip down deep inside to expose themselves, warts and all, as to and lay that out there. That's what makes a good actor. When you go to a film and watch a good actor, you want them to be vulnerable. You want them to be honest. You want to be able to identify with it. You want to be able to understand what it is they're going through. If it's just a face, just a cardboard cutout of an actor, it doesn't affect you in any way. It doesn't get you there. I mean, I hear voiceover from some phenomenal actor. I mean, you think about, Bradley Cooper does voiceover. Chris Pine is the voice of BMW. John Hamm is the voice of Mercedes-Benz. Why do you think they choose these people? Not just because they get to hang out with them, but they're really good at what they do. They understand that they take that acting ability that they have, and then they just tweak it a little bit for the medium that they happen to be working in with it, which is voiceover.
All right, we got a comp in the chat. It says, so basically Robert Clotworthy is the American version of David Attenborough.
That's what, yes, if only we had knighthoods in the U.S. That's high praise. And David Attenborough is certainly one of the finest voices out there. And what's amazing about David Attenborough gets back to what I was talking about before. He's incredibly present, incredibly honest. And one thing that we understand as voice actors is the microphone is a bullshit detector. It can tell when you're lying. So you have to be honest. And David Attenborough is present. He's there, and he just speaks the truth. And you know that he's not only involved, but he's got a stake in the game. When I talk to some voiceover actors that want to get into it, I say, what's your stake in this? Do you really care? If you don't care, let's say they're selling soap, but if they don't care about the soap, why should I care about the soap? You have to find it in yourself to kind of cross that bridge, to find a reason why you're saying what you're saying. If you can't do that, you're just saying words.
Heck yeah. Now, it sounds like in the 80s or 90s and most of the early 2000s, you did the same style roles, and then you got into some soap operas. Now, was the soap opera thing because you had beautiful, luxurious hair? As my viewers know, I'm receding hairline American. I'm bald as fuck. I just and also, are those shooting schedules with the soaps, are they more hectic than the other things? Because soaps are daily. At least it used to be. I don't know. I haven't watched a soap in years.
I tell you, I have great respect for the actors that are on those soaps every day, because it is challenging. You are basically doing a one-act play each and every day. And I was on Young and Restless. I've been on several, but Young and Restless was the one that I've been on the most. And I would play the judge. There was always going to be a trial. There's always a trial. Somebody's in trouble. Somebody may go to jail. So they always need a judge. And I was known as the no-nonsense judge. I guess the hanging judge of Young and Restless. And if you're doing, say, 4 or 5 episodes in a week, you have to kind of, the show that you're about to do, let's say it's Monday, the show you're going to do Tuesday, you got to know the lines Monday night. But the show you're going to do Wednesday, you've got to kind of have a pretty good idea what your lines are. Thursday, you're starting to get it. Friday, you're just kind of giving it a first pass. So you have to kind of work all this to make it happen, so that when you show up, what's critically important on those soap operas is they move very quickly. They want to do the stuff in 1 or 2 takes. If you're going 3 takes, they're not going to hire you again. You got to get this stuff out. And I remember this one episode that I did, and the scene was, I guess it's where I'm giving my ruling. So the scene starts out with the bailiff going, "All rise," and then the rest of the scene is me. And I think it was like 10 pages. It was a long ass monologue, crazy long. And it was all this descriptive stuff of this guy did that, and this guy did this, and this means this, all this crazy stuff. And I realized this, you know, getting this stuff out is critically important. And when you go and they give you the blocking for this is very, very simple. But it was interesting how they did it, because they said, okay, Jason, when you come here, I want you to sit here. I want you to take a look back at Melody on this line, and Melody, I want you to take a look at him. And then, Preston, when this happened, they give all the other actors and everybody that was on the show was actually in the courtroom that day. And he was giving all this direction to all these people that really weren't doing anything. They weren't saying anything. They were just sitting there looking at one another. And then he turns to me and he goes, and Robert, good luck. That's all he said was good luck. Well, that kind of, I guess I'm glad he said that, because it kind of pissed me off a little bit. And I thought, I'm going to show him. And when you do a rehearsal, you do one rehearsal just for cameras. So the cameras, it's more for the cameras than the actors, because oftentimes the actors will just come up with funny voices, just kind of BS a little bit, just because that's the way they get loose. But what I did when I was doing my lines, I looked at where each of the cameras were, and there's a red light that goes on when that camera is on. And whenever the camera was on me, I knew that I had to be dead on. But when the camera was not on me, I knew I could look down and kind of steal a bit off the script. And so in that rehearsal, all I did was memorize where which camera was going where at each time. And I got through it in one take. And it was, of course, it was going to be the scene just before lunch. So all the actors that were there were thinking, oh my God, this is going to take forever. We're going to have to wait 2 hours for lunch. And honestly, when we finished the scene, all the actors stood up and applauded. They applauded me. They came up and they said, oh my God, thank you for that. But it's being on a soap opera is hard. I saw this one actress once in the courtroom. I don't know how she did this. She had this monologue, this emotional monologue. Not only was she able to bring forth a tear during the monologue, but let's say the camera was on this side, the tear came down this eye. She could cry from this eye as opposed to this eye. She could say, I'm going to cry from this one. And she was able to do it. So it's amazing. It's amazing what they can do.
Now, on something like that, you got to memorize all them lines? There's no like cue cards in the background? Nothing like that?
For some of the stars at that time, they would have some cue cards for them, because they were doing a lot of scenes, each day. They'd break it up on Young and Restless. There was like a morning session and an afternoon session, depending on which episode they were coming on. Some people were working both morning and afternoon. Generally, most of the people are either doing morning or afternoon, but it's hard. But by the tail end of when we were all working, those cue cards were gone. I mean, I think it may have just been that, they didn't want to pay somebody else to put the cards together and have it out there. So no, you've got to really, you got to know your stuff.
Yeah, that memorization thing is not something I never really thought about. Not that I I need to get into acting, but like I can't memorize anything, Robert. My brain's shot. You know what I mean? Not that I'm still not intelligent, but like if you say, hey, memorize this, paragraph, and then we'll come back to 10 minutes later. Yeah, it's not happening over here. Yeah, so that's interesting.
It's a muscle that you have to work. It's like anything. Once you're in the groove, it becomes easier, but still, it's tough. I mean, the producer would come up to me and says, you know what I like about you? You don't cost me money. He would say, you don't cost me money. Because if I'm making the scene go longer, we have to do another take, it's costing them money.
Yeah. All right. Now we got to get into ancient alien stuff, because we got a bunch of alien questions in the chat. And some of them I wasn't going to ask, but the people want to know, and you've probably already asked them, been answering them 100 times. So bear with me if there's some little bit repetitiveness of it. Okay. But it's when you get into stuff like this, has anyone ever shocked you involved in ufology and stuff like that? Do you ever get we had a question from Captain about that, I think. Hold on. Basically, yeah. I mean, when people find out that you did this, or you're on these, because I mean, we got to be real about a lot of the UFO stuff. I mean, a lot of it's speculative. It's very conjecture.
Uh-huh.
a huge belief suspension, if you go according to science as it's taught, I mean? Is there ever, and obvious, do you believe in aliens question too? But I know the answer because I've seen that in 3 interviews you already asked that. But I mean, just in general, when people find out that you're the aliens guy or ancient aliens guy, and they start instantly asking you questions about aliens? Do they, so what's the whole vibe involved?
Yeah. I mean, they a lot of people think that I actually write the show or something, and it's like, no, I really don't. The way the show is done is they come up with a concept, an idea for that particular episode. They have a series of potential questions that they're going to ask the theorists, and then each one of the theorists goes and does their research to come up with an answer as to this. So they have some things that they can discuss. So people think that I actually write the stuff, and I don't. Mine is written after the theorists do all their stuff, and then I would just kind of fill in the blanks a little bit. But and I don't get the script in advance. I don't want to see the script a day in advance. I show up on the set or in the studio that day. They hand me the script and we go for it. I was there doing an episode yesterday, and part of the reason is because I have, like I said before, that ability to pull the words off the page pretty quickly with an interpretation. I know what is going on, and also I like being influenced by what I'm reading. If there's something that's fascinating or interesting to me, I I I allow that interest or fascination to be a part of my the way that I narrate. Sometimes I'll go, "Oh, this is really cool. This is really cool," and I'm excited about it. So that little sense of excitement in influences the way that I read the copy at that moment in time.
Now, is there anything? We got a question from Taylor. I'll expound on that. Is there anything that you went into kind of skeptical-ish and you read the evidence or you were reading it? You're like, okay, I'm really thinking the other side now, or something like that.
Yeah, I see the question there. Come on. Do I just do my job and move on? No, no, no. I am involved. But I have to be very careful because my job, the fellow that created the show, Kevin Burns, the late Kevin Burns, producer of the show, creator of Ancient Aliens, he wrote the episodes. He would say he's agnostic, but he's open to the information. So I have to be honest to that. I can't be all in. If I'm all in, then I'm preaching to you. If I'm a skeptic, then I'm kind of pissing on everything. So I've got to walk a little bit of a fine line. But personally, I have had some experiences. I've met some people who have told me some things that they have witnessed that I have no explanation for. That, for example, I met a woman at a convention in Dallas, and she used to work at NASA. And it was a convention where there weren't a lot of people. And so she and I had the opportunity to sit and talk for a few minutes. And I asked her, I said, did anything ever happen while you were at NASA that you couldn't talk about then, but you can talk about now? And she said, well, the statute of limitations is up. So yeah, she happened to work in mission control during the latter part of the Apollo missions. And I think this was Apollo 17, where what's his name? Not Gene Cernan, Ron Evans. Ron Evans was the command module pilot. This was the moon mission where they had the moon buggy, and it was one of the longest missions. So 2 astronauts were on the moon. They're driving around the moon buggy collecting samples. And Ron Evans, who was a former fighter pilot, Vietnam fighter pilot, not a wimp, not a pussy. This is not a guy that's easily rattled. He's a friggin' astronaut and a fighter pilot. And his job was to stay in the command module and just orbit the moon while the other 2 guys are on the surface of the moon. He comes around from the back side of the moon, the dark side of the moon, where he's out of radio contact, and he checks in with the commander of the mission, which is one of the astronauts that are on the moon. And the astronaut on the moon jokingly asks him, "Hey, Ron, are you lonely up there?" And his response was, "I'm not alone." Well, this woman that I know, if you've seen Apollo 13, where it's like all the people that are in front of those computers, well, she's one of those people. Her job was to monitor the vital signs of the astronauts while they're on their mission. So she's, checking their heart rate, the pulse. I mean, you name it, all that stuff she's monitoring. Well, as soon as he says that, it's an open channel because there's news people there. There's everybody listening to this stuff. Mission Control switches to a secure channel. And they ask him, they say, Ron, are you joking? And he says, no, I'm not joking. Now, of course, she switched over, so she's privy to the conversation. It's not like somebody told her. She's listening to the conversation. And he says, they said, well, what is it? He goes, I don't know. He goes, it's not American. It's not Russian. He estimates it to be roughly 40 feet in length because the command module that he's in is like maybe 17 feet stem to stern. He says, and it has acrylic markings on it, which some kind of markings on the side. He says he said it was wiener shaped because when he would go on a fighter mission, before he would go, his food, his good luck food, he would eat Oscar Mayer wieners. So he described it as wiener shape, which is one of the two most common shapes for a UFO. It's either a cigar shaped or it's a triangle shaped. This would have been fit into that cigar shaped category. It follows him in orbit for I think was 3.5 in formation for like 3.5 orbits around the moon and then flies off.
Wow.
Now she also spoke to him when he landed. She was on the support ship, and he was completely rattled by it. He says, I don't know what it was because I've never seen anything like that in my life. Now, this is somebody that witnessed it. When somebody tells me that, she had no agenda. She didn't come up to me and say, hey, I got a story to tell you. She was walking away. I said, hey, by the way, anything? And she goes, well, yeah, sure. Okay. And she told me the story. So how do I explain that? I can't. Somewhere out there is either video or still photographs that Ron Evans took of this that we haven't seen yet. Now, I asked her, I said, what was NASA's opinion about this? She said, well, they had a meeting with all the people that had heard the conversation, and they basically said, don't discuss this. But the reason they said don't discuss it is because NASA is not in the business of forming an opinion about what that might have been. They said, we just gathered the information, and then we pass it on to the scientists, the brain trust, and they figure it out. So don't speculate as to what it might be. So, when those kind of things happen, you're asking me, do I believe? I have some serious questions. There's stuff happening out there that we cannot explain. Here's something really freaky on one of the episodes that blew my mind. Talk about when I get those scripts and I see some information and I go, wow, this is cool. Well, this one I thought was really, really cool. That the Great Pyramid of Giza, if you look at it latitude and longitude, it is the speed of light in meters per second. Now, how is that possible?
It's
The
one of the
Egyptians
most oddest coincidences ever, or
yes.
something. I was going to actually ask you about the pyramids.
Okay.
It's one of my questions because I actually heard you say that in another show. But I mean, that's fascinating. So if this is true, guys, you go out there and go and Google, look it up.
Look up latitude, longitude of Great Pyramid and compare the numbers to the speed of light in meters per second. It's going to be it's like 4.2. It's like 37 numbers they're all the same. It's essentially exactly the same.
Right. So either they invented the speed of light after the pyramids, or it's a really good coincidence or something. But my question about the pyramids is, what is the deal with the pyramids? And if I asked you who built them, what are your top 3 theories on it?
Oh, my top 3 theories. I don't think people really know precisely the purpose of the pyramids. First of all, no one's buried in them. There's nothing. And also, you'd think that there would be, there's all kinds of passageways and things in there you can go in. And that at that time when they were built, you would think the light would come from a torch, right? You have to light something on fire and carry it with you. There's no soot on the ceiling of any of these passageways. And the size of these stones are so immense. And where did they get them from? There's even like in the Sphinx, they say there's signs of erosion from water on the Sphinx, and it rains about a quarter of an inch a century or something in the desert there. It's so the thing, it's at one point in time it was all underwater. In fact, the Egyptians, people think, oh, the Egyptians built the Sphinx. The Egyptians discovered the Sphinx. They don't know who built it.
Okay, I never knew that.
Yeah.
All right,
So
so
it's very confusing. Is it some kind of a part of a power system? We talked about that. I don't know. Maybe.
now
Is it possible?
there's this made me think of something else when you said the Egyptians didn't make them. Now, I mean, there's possibly like there's this island, I think it's called Mu, out,
Okay.
and maybe that was the continent, but it's like out in the Pacific, and they have a bunch of like unexplained rock formations. There's like they were saying, there's no way this. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
and they were saying that possibly they levitated this stuff into place, and that's just a technology we didn't have yet. And I would bet if I'm just blind guessing, I mean, it's either they found it, they poured them into place with the frame and took it down, or which I mean, they don't have knowledge of poured concrete back then. It's probably think it is made out of poured concrete. But like if they had levitation, something that we just didn't know about, that a technology, and that was lost over time, that's a possibility too.
Well, also, it's nice to be friends with some of the theorists on the show. I'm very good friends with Giorgio. I'm actually going to be at a convention next week in Las Vegas with Nick Pope, David Childress, Jason Martell. In Las Vegas, a thing called Stairway to the Stars. So I get to interact with these people, and one of the questions that they had that I was just like overhearing a conversation in a green room once. I mean, the planet Earth, I think, is like 5 billion years old, and we've only been able to get things from the past that go back 100 million years, or dinosaurs, whatever. What about the other 4 or 5 billion years that happened prior to that? Maybe we are just the latest iteration of the the human beings on the planet. Maybe there's been multiple human beings have come and gone, and then they just disappear, and they come back again, and then they disappear. So who the heck knows? The age of these things. You can't like carbon date a rock. That's one of the problems.
Right. I mean, it's weird when you get deep down into that. I mean, it could even be like a simulation. The whole simulation theory always runs to my head. Like, what if there's just some guy up there, like we're just a giant game of The Sims, and he's making us do all this random stuff. You know what I mean? So that's a fun deep dive. Now, ironically enough, this morning, like at my YouTube feed, there was an episode of Ancient Aliens, and I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen too many of the shows. I mean, I used to watch the History Channel religiously when I was younger, like religiously before the internet and streaming and a lot of that took over. We used to watch Modern Marvels and everything else just every episode. So I haven't, but this one was on. It was on the History Channel YouTube channel. It was about the Blarney Stone, and I thought it was really cool because I've actually kissed the Blarney Stone in '99. Me and my dad visited the Blarney Stone. So I got to ask you, first off, is the rumor that all the locals pee on the stone at night true? And secondly, have you ever kissed the Blarney Stone? And what's the deal with the aliens and all the ancient Irish folklore on that thing?
Oh, we actually did an episode about Irish folklore and the little people, and I can't remember all the details of it, but it was pretty fascinating. Me personally, I have not. My father was really big into genealogy, so he traced our family back to Ireland, back to about 1000. So he's been there. My brother has been there. I have not. Whether the locals pee on it, listen, they drink a lot of beer, so sometimes you got to go. We got to go when you got to go. So I all these stories, there, I got to think there's got to be a purpose behind them. It's not like just somebody sits around and gets drunk and then just comes up with some idea that there are we people in Ireland, and then that for some reason that legend takes off and it goes on and on and on. There's got to be some kind of a kernel of truth, something that happened way back when, which and still things that keep happening that are a little bit maybe unexplainable that keep those ideas alive. And by the way, I find it's interesting that a lot of people want to uh, peek behind the curtain, so to speak. They want to know how the magician does his trick, as opposed to be entertained and amazed. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe some of these stories, the magic is in the story itself, and you don't look for the accuracy so much as opposed to the metaphor for what the story means, and you can find lessons in that. Most of the stories that that we enjoy and listen to as human beings, and there is, I mean, a pattern that should be. I mean, Joseph Campbell talked about these different elements in the stories. If you have these elements in your story, people are going to want to hear it over and over and over again, because it somehow connects with this primal aspect of human nature. You need to have a reluctant hero, for example, you know, where a person who is called to action, somebody that's just a normal person, all of a sudden has to do heroic things because circumstances dictate that. So a lot of these stories are rooted in that. They're inspirational in nature, and they're also educational. They teach you morality, teach you how to interact with people, and also gives you this sense of wonder. When you look up at the sky, would you really want to know everything? If you know everything, then the learning process is over. Isn't the fact that you're gaining knowledge, isn't that what's exciting? That you're learning something each and every day, and that we're only here for a finite period of time. And part of our job is to get as much information as we can, to learn as much, not just sit back and, I know it all. No, you don't know it all.
Got to keep your mind open for sure.
Keep-
Now, have
keep
you
it
ever
open.
have you had any interactions with? I hope I pronounce his name right, Giorgio A.
Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Yeah, Suklos. And
Tsoukalos.
and why is he the lead guy? When people say aliens, he's the guy instantly people think of
He,
as
he
the
he's
alien.
he's the guy with the hair.
Right.
I'm the voice. He's the hair. He's the meme. Actually, Giorgio and I are very, very good friends, and we see each other quite often, as a matter of fact. And it's I guess it's not a secret as to how the hair became the hair. But for those of you who have not heard it, Giorgio was initially not even going to be on the show. When the producer Kevin Burns was putting together a cast, he had used Giorgio in a documentary about the making of one of the Indiana Jones movies. It was about the Crystal Skulls or something, and so he had used him as one of the I guess the experts in that documentary. But when he was doing Ancient Aliens, he really wanted Eric von Daniken to be on the show, the fellow that created the ancient astronaut theory, that wrote the Chariots of the Gods. But he thought that Eric was not with us anymore, that Eric was dead. So he used Giorgio, and he happened to have a conversation with Giorgio once and said, yeah, I really wanted to use Eric. And Giorgio was actually very good friends with Eric and said, well, Eric's alive. He said, well, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have hired you. But Giorgio was out here doing an episode of, I guess, an early episode of Ancient Aliens. And they put him out at a hotel in Santa Monica. And they kept pushing back the date that they were going to use him. It was like, we're going to use you Monday. Now Monday came and went. Tuesday came and went. Well, he gets a knock on his door one morning very early at the hotel room, and they say, okay, we're ready to shoot. He says, what are you talking about? They said, didn't you get the call? He goes, no. He said, well, we need you. He says, well, I'm not ready. I'm not even dressed. I haven't taken a shower. My hair's in my. He says, don't worry, fine, you're fine. And so they basically what started out as his bed hair ended up being the signature of his I guess his meme, his character, whatever the heck he is on a show, because it just kind of took off. But he's incredibly charismatic. He really knows what he's talking about, and he's got that he's got that certain something that people respond to. and he's a really good guy and knows his stuff.
I just love how every line's like, if there's deductive mislogic, he's like, oh, there's not a car parked over there, and it's parked over there
Yeah.
before. You know what that means?
Mm-hmm.
Aliens. It just makes me laugh every time. Every time it
his
makes
little thing with his hands. It must be aliens. Got to be aliens.
All right. Now the Curse of Oak Island is
Uh-huh.
called the world's longest treasure hunt. Now, first off, have you been to Oak Island yourself? And what drives people to be so fascinated about this place?
No, I have not been there. I would like to go there. I keep telling the producers each and every year I want to get back there and experience a little bit. I think it's again, it goes back to Kevin Burns, who was the creator of Ancient Aliens and The Curse of Oak Island. He really had this great sense of understanding what the public wanted to see. And one of the things that's wonderful about The Curse of Oak Island is the relationship that the two brothers have. That is genuine. What these guys are trying to do is real. They're not there just for the money. It's all on put on. This is something they've been trying to accomplish since they were little boys. And I think all of us, every human has that desire. I mean, who hasn't treasure hunted at some point in their life? Whether it's on a larger scale where you actually have a metal detector, or you're just out there kind of with a divining rod, or you're just out there with your friends digging holes, looking for something, whatever it might be, finding clues. But there's something about the search for treasure that is there's an incredible allure to that. And these guys are doing it on a scale that we can't even imagine. I mean, they're spending big money, millions of dollars, bringing in giant earth moving equipment, all kinds of technology to try to discover what is happening on this island. And they are making progress. They are discovering a lot of information. And what happens is it's more mysteries as one door closes, a bunch of other doors open up. So it's searching for treasure is you spend most of your time searching for treasure. You don't spend a lot of time finding treasure. It's like if you search for your car keys, you're going crazy looking for the things. Once you find them, you stop. And so this is a show about not only searching for treasure. I hope that they do find a lot of the answers they're looking for, because if their answers are there, they will find them. But it's also it's real. It's not a show that's offensive in any way.
Right.
I've had people come up to me, entire families that watch the show together. One guy even came up to me and goes, just between you and me, I hope they never find anything on that island, because I'm having such a good time with my children watching the show, seeing how people get together and try to solve problems and have to work within a budget and figure out things and have to deal with disappointment. It's a great life lesson for people that we don't often get, because there's a lot of frustration that's associated with it. People that watch the show, they get frustrated because they want them to succeed. I go, why don't you just look there? But it's that's part of the process. That's part of the magic of the show. And I've only worked on, I think, 7 or 8 of the episodes for this season, and it's already amazing what these guys are doing. It's incredible. And they had to deal with a hurricane this last season as well. That big hurricane that went up the East Coast, went right over Nova Scotia. So, things happen, but good things also happen. What happens is the hurricane just all of a sudden turns over a lot of stuff that had been buried. So,
Heck yeah. All right, now we got to get into American Sniper.
Okay.
Like I was telling you in the pre-show, I just watched this morning. First start out by saying, I saw it before, but I wanted to refresh. And I got to start by saying, what an amazing movie, right? What a great masterpiece. I mean, I'm a big war movie guy. I was were you in the service at all yourself?
No, I was not, but I am a big supporter of people that have served. My nephew was in the Air Force. Of course, my father was in the Navy during World War II. And I was a big fan of Chris Kyle. I had read the book prior to being cast in the movie. So I really, and I'd heard interviews with him. And so I was very, very interested and personally connected to his story in that way. And when the audition came about for American Sniper, it was one of those things, I really wanted to be a part of because I thought the story was so important to tell. And, to get to work with Clint Eastwood and Bradley Cooper in a film of that magnitude, and then to find out that he is killed while this movie is being made. It was like, are you? And he was killed being a hero. He was killed helping people that needed it the most, the soldiers that he worked with. And a short story about the scene that I was in with Bradley. I play his therapist in it, and it was a well written scene that we were going to do. But prior to the shooting of it, the writer comes up to me and he goes, Robert, Bradley wants to expand on the scene. And my first thought was, oh my goodness, what does that mean? Am I going to get all new pages? When you work with Clint Eastwood, you don't get to meet him at an audition because he doesn't do that with actors. You videotape the stuff. When he was an actor, he hated auditioning. He doesn't like actors to come in and audition for him because he feels the pressure that they want the job. And he'd rather just look at the videotape and choose his actors. And that's what he did with me. So I hadn't met him yet, and certainly hadn't met Bradley Cooper yet. And I said, well, are there new pages? And he says, no. What we want to do is we want to improvise the scene. And for me, that was like the answer to a prayer, as I've had a lot of experience with improvisation. And I said, well, this is great. And he said, the reason we want to improvise it is because there's a lot of elements of the story that you can't really thematically show on screen. Like, how do you really explain how long a tour is? If it's, if he's there on, in country for 137 days, how do you show 137 days? You just can't. So there were all these specific elements that they wanted to bring up, like how long he'd been there, how many unconfirmed kills he had versus confirmed kills, a lot of this specificity like that. And then I started thinking, okay, if I'm a therapist, my job is to get him to tell me the truth. And the way you're going to get him to tell you the truth is to let him know that you already know what the truth is, that he can't bullshit you. And I'd read the script, obviously, and I knew that the scene prior to that was where he's struggling in his assimilation back into normal life. He wants to be back in country. He wants to be saving people. That's his purpose in life. And now he's in the US, he's home, and he's dealing with kids' parties, and he just can't get back to that life because he feels that he didn't do enough. And so in this scene prior to that, he basically loses it. He's at a kid's party. He's about to beat a dog, and because he perceives this danger, and his wife screams at him, and he looks up and he knows, I'm in trouble. So cut to the scene in the therapist's office. And I thought, what would be the one thing that if you're a guy that you're going to a therapist's office, what's the one thing you do not want to have the therapist say to you? I don't know if you've ever been to a shrink. Everybody in LA has been. But the first thing I thought of was this. I said, I talked to your wife. and it was fun. And we did not rehearse this. Remember, they just set the cameras up. And when Clint Eastwood, he doesn't say action, he just says go, and he doesn't say cut. He just says stop. So he just said go. And so I was looking at Bradley Cooper, and I said, I talked to your wife, and you could see his eyes. I mean, he's such a phenomenal actor. His eyes, his pupils just kind of like expanded a little bit because he knew that he'd been caught and he couldn't lie, which changed, what he was thinking how he was going to start the scene out, but it changed a little bit. And we just did this scene, this back and forth talking, and we never stepped on each other's lines. It was just this easy conversation. And then we and we got through, and it was actually Clint Eastwood's favorite scene in the movie. It was the scene they showed at the Academy Awards when Bradley Cooper was nominated for an Oscar. When they here's a little voiceover connection to it. When we finished the scene, I said to the writer, I said, that scene would make a really good trailer for the movie, because the questions that I asked him in that were so succinct, so specific, that they ended up using that in the trailer for American Sniper. So if you listen to the trailer, you'll hear a lot of that scene in voiceover.
That's awesome. It's funny because when you first said I talked to your wife, I know a guy who works for the VA, you know what I mean? Yeah. And to get a hold to call the doctor, to call the VA and get a hold of the doctor in 2012 is going to be a little bit of a task. You're going to have to go through a bunch of
yeah.
That's just bureaucracy. That part made me laugh so much right there.
Yeah, I know that, but you can't play that in a scene, because originally, as written, I basically just give him prescription at the end. Here, take some meds, and call me in the morning. But once we started talking about what the purpose of this scene was, that this is where Bradley Cooper's character makes that shift, where he has to acknowledge he's in trouble and doesn't know what to do, and then is given an option as to how he can continue to help. Because he says, I just wish I'd help more guys. And I challenged him. I said, well, if you want to help more guys, we got guys here that need help. And I said, you want to go? You want to help? Do you really want to help?
That was a great fucking transition. God, I love that. You're just standing there in the background, and he's just bullshit with the vets, just like like vets do. Vets get together, we just bullshit, talk about stuff. Oh, that was a great fucking scene.
And what's nice is we actually shot the scene with the vets prior to the scene with he and I in the office, so I knew where we were going with it.
Okay.
So I knew that we had to kind of get him there at some point. So I needed to challenge him, and he had to agree. I said, this is what you really want to do? I got it here. You want to go? Let's do it now. And he's like, he's a fucking Marine. He's going to go, okay. And the guys that were there were real vets. Those weren't actors. And it was an incredibly emotional, experience to be a part of that, because it was such an important film, because there were so many people that were struggling and didn't understand what soldiers have gone through. I've made friends with some Navy SEALs in the past, and they tell me, man, if they got the call, they'd be there tomorrow. And they have told me, they said, one of the misconceptions that people have is people think we're monsters. They don't understand why we're doing what we're doing, and that and there's this courage, there's this sense of commitment, this sense of honor, the sense of purpose that they have, that I think a lot of people, fortunately, because most of us are clueless, we get to, because there are people out there on that wall that are protecting us, we can live in this world where we can worry about stupid things, that our cell service is not good, or we're late, get stuck in traffic. What wonderful problems to have. So it was an honor to be a part of it. And and the movie was perfect timing for that, because I think prior to that, all the movies that were coming out were kind of I don't want to say anti-American, but they just didn't show soldiers in a good light.
Yeah.
In a true light. And this one showed the struggle that you have to go through, the personal struggle he had to go through. The first person that he kills is a woman. That's not fucking easy.
The way they begin when he's sitting there, and then flash forward 10 minutes later, but to make that decision, I cringe every time. And then there's another scene later in the movie when the one guy gets shot and he falls over.
Yeah.
And the rocket launcher is sitting on the ground. There's like a 7-year-old who's going to pick up the rocket launcher. He's like, I'm feeling that your tension just rises when you're watching that. The way they point, and he finally drops off it. Oh, that was a great scene.
Yeah, and Bradley Cooper is saying, "Don't pick it up, please. Don't pick it up. Don't, please, don't," because he knows what he has to do if he does, and he's going. And that's the struggle that the soldier faces, and it was an incredible experience, and it made fortunately, a ton of money because people were looking for, an affirmation that the good guys are out there. We do have
Well,
good guys, good men and women that are out there protecting us.
right. Well, it's a whole military industrial complex thing. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
you go back to Vietnam. Nobody wanted to be in Vietnam. Who was in Vietnam
yeah,
typically? But it was just a military industrial complex. It's what the government told us. Your country calls you, you go serve.
yeah,
You know, I mean,
yeah,
same thing in Iraq. I was in Iraq when they got Bin Laden. The tour thing, the Air Force. I was Air Force, so it's like tours are like all over the place. You'll hear some of these Air Force guys like, "Oh, I got 10 tours." Yeah, they got 2 weeks. They counted as a tour, so
yeah,
it's all over the place. That's a fluid definition. But when he was getting into the, I wish I could have saved more guys, but I quit. That
yeah,
was a very powerful
yeah,
line to
yeah,
me
yeah,
because in the movie they just go about how you got this family and kids at home, and I've seen this time and again. You get people who are just addicted to the service. They like going to the desert. It's easy over there in some aspects. You don't
yeah,
have to worry about mowing your lawn. Meals are covered. You don't have to
yeah,
worry about healthcare. All you do is get up, do your job, and that's it. So a lot of people got addicted to that life. And a lot of spouses, it's hard for them to grasp.
yeah,
I'm never
yeah,
seeing my husband. Why am I doing this?
yeah, yeah,
And they get that separation, and that eats up a lot of vets. And I don't think a lot of when we talk about that stuff, I don't think we take into account the people back home side. I mean, I
yeah,
was lucky because we were there in 2011. We had internet. I was on Skype.
yeah,
I joke. I talked to the wife more than I act. I talk over here. We got to the point where nothing to talk about. You know what I mean? So it's like when he said all that, because like one loss is too much, and you always feel like you could do more. You always do.
yeah,
In my
yeah,
case, I just filled the position. You think it's that pain ever goes away with some people? I mean, you're asking 17, 18, 19-year-old guys to go out there and life or death decisions. I mean, if you got that, sniper rifle and there's a kid there and that kid turns out to be holding a crayon like they alleged in the movie, you could be standing tall before a board and that's
yeah,
not fun.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they could
yeah,
really lambaste you,
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's war is very very challenging. It's not fun. People take it lightly, and they shouldn't, because the choices, the decisions you have to make uh, in that moment w- may haunt you for your entire life. Uh, a good friend of mine, his father passed away recently. He was a Marine. He was freaking fought on Iwo Jima, okay, but he didn't want to talk about what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
It was, he had to do it, and he was an officer. He was a lieutenant. He was leading guys into battle. Um, it, it's, it can affect you for your entire life. I was sitting talking to my father once before he passed away, and I was talking about his friends in his frat house. We went to Syracuse, and he happened to mention this one guy, Woody, blah blah blah. And he goes, yeah, and he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I said, whoa, Dad, wait. You have a friend that was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor? He says, yeah. Well, Woody. And I'm thinking that was just their lives. It was not a big. I mean, it was a big deal, but at the same time, it was he was just one of the guys. I mean, they were all serving. They were all fighting the war. And this guy got it. He was awarded it by in the Oval Office by I was like, really? Okay. That's by Roosevelt. It was like, whoa, okay. So
Now, do you
there's
think that movie would have been any different had Steven Spielberg directed it? And in what way?
wow. Well, I know that Steven Spielberg likes to do crane shots. Everybody kind of looks for that crane shot that he does, where it kind of starts in close and goes way out. Um, I don't know. It probably would have been more of a big. I want to say a spectacle. That the budget that they were working under with American Sniper was a much smaller budget. One of the things that Clint Eastwood was known for was bringing his movies, doing them quickly, and bringing it in under budget, which was really important. I think that with Spielberg, especially at that time, it would have added so much attention to the movie that the risk there would have maybe gotten out of control. As far as the budget is concerned, it would have been too big, almost like 1941, his movie 1941. It got so huge, it was like I don't know what it is anymore. But Spielberg is one of my favorite directors. It would have been fascinating to see what he would have done with it. He's amazing. I don't think he did that great a job with West Side Story, except for the one dance scene, America. I thought that was fantastic, but didn't have the same magic as the original. But he's, I mean, come on, it's Steven Spielberg.
Right, one of the best ever made, right? Shit.
Oh my goodness, he's got so many great movies left in him. It's. I feel. In fact, I just watched not too long ago one of the first things he ever directed. He directed an episode of, I think it might have even been. It was a Columbo. It was a Columbo because he started as a 20-year-old or something at Universal. He snuck on the lot and got himself an office and got a phone in there and just made the rounds. And eventually he started picking up jobs here and there. But he's always been good. You ever see Duel?
Yep, nice.
Oh my goodness, that was like his first major film, a movie. It's Richard. God, I want to say Richard Crenna is in it, and basically, there's like really no dialogue in the movie. It's a guy who's a traveling salesman. He's in his car, and this big rig truck, first it passes him, and then it stops suddenly. All of a sudden, he gets into this battle with this trucker. And you never see who the trucker is, and it's just him muttering to himself, "What are you doing, man? Come on, get out of the way," that kind of stuff. But it's a fascinating friggin' movie. If you've never seen Duel, watch it. You'd enjoy it.
I can. All right, now you got to tell me about your roles in Big Bang Theory. Now, is this a natural progression from the ancient alien stuff? Because they talk about all that cosmic stuff on Big Bang Theory. And do you think Big Bang Theory is the last of the great network sitcoms?
Oh man. It's quite possible. I mean, I did quite a few episodes of Big Bang and also 2.5 Men. So I was part of Chuck Lorre's, I guess, his entourage, his acting troupe. On 2.5, it was basically all voiceover. On Big Bang, I even was on camera for at least one episode. I think Chuck Lorre also does Young Sheldon. Of course, Young Sheldon. I did on camera for that. But Big Bang is a fascinating show. I remember because I worked on it for quite a few episodes over the years, so I was able to watch it kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger. The first episode that I was on, I sat and talked to the guys, Sandy and the other Jim and the other actors when they were just starting out. I mean, they had no idea what it was going to be, and hoping that it was going to be a hit. And I kind of told them, I said, this is really good. You guys are going to do well. And they were happy to hear it. But I don't know that you can do those shows like that anymore. It was a really fascinating group of actors that they cast. Casting is critical when it comes to that. If you don't have people that are interesting and fascinating, and can hold an audience's interest, you're not going to succeed. And plus, they were really smart. It was cleverly written. Chuck Lorre is a phenomenal creator. Everything he does seems to turns into gold. It seems. I don't know if it's the last. Hopefully, it's not. I mean, I like sitcoms. I've done quite a few. I've done dramas. Sitcoms are fun because you get to do them in front of a live audience, and it's a performance. It really is cool.
Well, it's hard just to get the network money like you did before, and we're in just a different era of what you can say, what you can't say. Hopefully, this too shall pass, as they say.
Yeah.
All right, now it says you were in GTA 5. Now, one, do you like video games? Two, do you have time to play video games?
You're talking about that. You should talk about StarCraft. You ever play StarCraft?
I've never played StarCraft. I fully admit, and I hate to use a dork word, but like that dork genre, like the Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Dungeons and Dragons. I just never really got into that. My son likes Dungeons and Dragons. He's getting to some of it, but I just never got it. I've been more into sports than that part. You know what I mean? But on the video game thing, especially GTA 5, do you have any inside info about when GTA 6 is going to come out? Like, have you been doing any roles and you can tell us now and not anybody else?
Well,
Because it's been 10 years and we're dying for new Grand Theft Auto.
I have no clue about Grand Theft Auto when a new one's coming out, because, you know, you basically go in, you do your thing, and then you're gone. But StarCraft, I'm sure some people out there played StarCraft. I'm the voice of Jim Raynor in StarCraft, which is like the major hero in StarCraft, and have been playing that role. I guess first started in 1999, if you can believe that, and still do it occasionally. I can't tell you anything that's coming up really soon, but I have had some work with them. Also, just recently, a new game came out called Hellboy, and I'm the evil Nazi in that. Let's see, I'm doing one. Dang, I did the new Star Wars: The Old Republic, one of those new ones, just a few weeks ago. So yeah, video games are a lot of fun. What's great about video games is you are not limited by what you look like. I mean, for those of you who know what Jim Raynor looks like in StarCraft, I don't look a whole heck of a lot like him. I mean, I'm in much better physical shape than Jim Raynor. Just joking. If you don't know who he is, he's like pumped up, just super macho, but a very vulnerable human guy. He's not a superhero, and so that's what's really fun about working on video games, is you get to do things as an actor you would never be able to do on camera. I was also in A Last of Us Part 2, where we did what is it called, a motion capture on that. Okay. So I'm a jack of all trades, man. I'll go wherever they want me to go. I'll do whatever they want me to do.
That's awesome. All right, here we got a bunch of questions lined up for everybody. We've been stacking them, so here we go. Okay. It says, does Robert ever get the question when he talks to the public? Your voice sounds so familiar. What do you do for a living?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, well, I'll give you a little thing. People often times with Ancient Aliens, they'll say, you don't sound the same. Like when we're talking, it doesn't sound like the guy on the show. I say, well, the reason for that is because where the microphone is placed and where I am projecting. Right now, I'm kind of projecting out, a couple of feet. So you have to kind of use your voice a little bit more. But when I'm doing Ancient Aliens, I'm imagining that the audience is, maybe this far away from me, right? Like just real close, like I'm speaking into your ear. And so I'll bring the microphone in and I'll give you a little example. Okay, so it's like, is it possible? Could it be? What if it were true? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes. So it's just a matter of the proximity changes a little bit. But yeah, I do get people, I don't know if they immediately recognize my voice, but as soon as they know who it is, they go, oh. And it's interesting with Ancient Aliens and Curse of Oak Island, a lot of people find my voice to be very soothing, and they put it on and go to sleep.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think yesterday I woke up to an episode of Ancient Aliens. I always follow YouTube. I always fall asleep to YouTube, and I swear episode of Ancient Aliens is on the swear. That's great.
I don't take it as an insult. That's good.
We got a question from Captain. He says, what do you think about voice actors getting called out for playing characters from different races?
Oh man, acting is acting. You're pretending. It's I don't want to be politically correct, because I think people are a little overly sensitive now when it comes to certain things. It's I don't think people should necessarily wear blackface and go out there and I mean, come on, that's absurd. But at the same time, we've got to have a little bit of freedom to play different characters. I know that God, what was her name? Scarlett Johansson was supposed to play a character that was I think she was maybe, I don't know if she was a lesbian, she was a transgender, something where she was playing this role of this very important character, and Scarlett Johansson is a wonderful actress, big star, and there was pushback because she wasn't exactly what that person was in real life. And the net result is now the movie's not going to get made because they couldn't find an actor, actress, whatever that could play the role, that would be able to bring the people in, that would get the financing. So it's just it's just gone. I've played, I played superheroes. I'm not a superhero. I've 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 played doctors. I'm not a doctor. At what point do you say it's okay to kind of stretch a little bit? I'm not going to play I think of oh God, what's his name from from oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank now, but I think we just have to be a little bit more, have a little bit more fun in life, not be so serious about it. I don't have a problem with people that have been underrepresented or haven't had opportunities before to get some opportunities, but it's also, I do believe that, you want to have the best person out there doing whatever it is they're doing. I don't want there to be a compromise when it comes to a performance, or, if I have a plumber, I just want a good plumber. I don't care, man, woman, whatever it doesn't matter. As long as they're good. I don't want them to go be the plumber just because they happen to fit into a category that satisfies somebody else and my sink is still stopped up. So it's a bit of a loaded question. I've worked with a lot of actors, and generally, especially on ADR stages, we tend not to kind of, there's enough of us there. If it's an African American character, one of the African American actors will take it. But every once in a while, some stuff happens. I remember working on a version of Godzilla. Oh no, it was oh my goodness, it was the Matthew Broderick film with the oh God, what's it called? We started with Shock the Monkey. It's where the oh God, I can't remember what it is now. Where he's like playing the video game or something, and it's like going to destroy the world. Whatever, I can't remember what it's called now. And I'm sure people are listening, they're screaming it out right now. But there's a scene that starts out the movie where it's in an African marketplace, because it shows them capturing this monkey in the wild, put it in a cage, and you just see the monkey going through the thing. And the last thing is going through an African marketplace before it gets on a ship to be transported to the U.S. And they had and they actually hired a bunch of Africans to come in to speak, the different dialects, different languages that they speak, to make it real. And they'd let them go. They'd left, they said, okay, you're finished for the day. And they left, and they had this queue left, and they needed it. So, I was like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, Robert, can you do it? Mitch, can you? So we kind of got together and went, well, we'll try. And we just kind of made up some stuff to kind of make it sound somewhat similar. And after we finished, we both looked at each other and said, I hope we don't burn in hell for what we just did. But it was just getting the job done. It was no skin off anybody's back, and but whatever.
That's a good lead into this next question. Are there any accents that you struggle with?
Yeah. I'm pretty good with quite a few, but I know that sometimes a Scottish accent can be challenging. You really have to kind of dig deep into it. I can do a fairly good Irish, British, Southern for sure. Western accents. Even a passable French or Italian. But some accents are more challenging than others. I mean, I can even do a bit of a Japanese if I need to. I've had to do that in the past.
All right. Well, we got a question we ask every guest this: Beatles or Queen? Who would you pick out of those two bands?
Oh, with the release of the new Beatles tune, the new Beatles single, I've got to go with the Beatles. I'm a huge fan of Queen and Freddie Mercury, but the Beatles, I would say, and by the way, that new song, the way that it all came together, it's an amazing story. I don't know if you know it.
I read the story. I haven't heard the song yet. I've read the story though.
Yeah, it's actually quite good. it definitely sounds like a Beatles song. And to know that this came from just John Lennon in the 70s recording something on a cassette with a piano, and then to be able to have Peter Jackson come up with a technology that separated his vocal from the piano track, and that George Harrison in the mid 90s and Paul and Ringo had tried to put something together in the mid 90s, but the technology was not there. So it's got all four of them on it performing, and it's with it's Niall. It's like Niles Martin. I'm trying to who conducted the strings, the son of the producer of all the tunes. It's really quite beautiful. So I'm going with the Beatles. Going with the Beatles on this one.
All right, it kind of tied in with this song because I know that they were talking about doing some of this. What's your opinion on AI and the possibility of it taking voiceover jobs? Like they could just type in, have Robert Clotworthy introduce my show into some generator. What's your take on all that?
Well,
and what do you think the end result's going to be?
Yeah, that's the reason that the actors we are on strike right now, is because AI is pretty scary. Here, I'll tell you what my fear is. Not just that AI can duplicate the voice, because the argument that I've heard from people, first of all, you want to keep your job, but people say, well, AI doesn't have a soul. It's not going to have that heart that a real person would have. And I think that's true. But the question I have is, the audience going to be discriminating enough to care? If an AI writes a show and you have actors come in and do it, is the audience going to go, I don't know, that version of NCIS just wasn't up to where I'm used to, because it must have been AI? They're probably not. That we're in a society now where we listen to MP3s as opposed to vinyl. We know that vinyl is a lot better, but it takes a little bit more work to clean the record, to keep your needle right, and play it on all that, deal with the scratches. We'd rather just go to the MP3, even though the sound quality is less. So that's the fear. And also, if it gets out of control, I mean, at that point, what is reality anymore? It's hard enough to trust what you see on the news. You add to that AI, where you'll have now videos of people doing something, and they say that wasn't me, or I saw an AI version of John Lennon singing a song that this guy wrote, and it sounded like John Lennon. I don't think that John Lennon would have actually performed it that way, but hey, who am I? If you don't know who John Lennon is or familiar with his work, you'd buy it. So it's scary, and I hope that they put a serious restrictions on it, because it is frightening. I know that when I go into the studio, the editors have told me, said, yeah, we've got enough of you right now. We don't need to have you come in anymore ever. Like, really? Okay.
Right.
That's kind of scary.
Amen on that. I mean, I nobody's ever trying to replicate me. So, but yeah, I don't. At the end of the day, I don't think AI is good. I think it's going to be a blip, because I mean, I look at AI art. And AI art is just so bad, it makes me cringe. So I don't know. All right, we got a question from Captain. Jam or marmalade? What do you like better?
How about jelly? Jelly's not.
All right, that's what I'll roll with too, jelly, because he's from the UK, so he's all about that. Irish whiskey or Scotch?
Oh yes, definitely Scotch. I like a single malt. Definitely a single malt.
Okay. What's your favorite ocean?
Well, it's probably an ocean that I've never been to, and I would say it's the Indian Ocean.
Okay.
And it's just because when they had was it not a World's Cup, it was the yachting competition out there, and it was in the Indian Ocean. It was the water just looked so blue and so beautiful and so amazing that I just wanted to go there. I live on the Pacific coast. I see the Pacific Ocean. It's the biggest ocean out there, so it does have my heart, but it's cold. I like warmer water. I've been to the East Coast, and with the Gulf Current off of New Jersey or North Carolina, that's pretty nice.
Oh yeah, the Caribbean is go to there as opposed to LA for beaches. What's your opinion on Loch Ness Monster?
I think there's something there. I mean, I think that there's too much evidence to support that something's there. And wouldn't you rather believe that Nessie is real than not? I mean, what does it get you by going, I don't believe that? It just, end of conversation. You're just like a curmudgeon guy. No, why not? That's kind of cool. I've seen the pictures. I've seen some videos. I think we've done some episodes about it, and those locks are really deep, and the water is really dark. And sure, absolutely. I mean, we're finding stuff that we didn't think existed for centuries, and it's still there. So there's a lot to be explored, especially when it comes to what's under the water.
Oh, Mariana Trench, just a whole new world of exploration.
Yeah.
My goodness. All right. Do you ever get excited before Christmas or glad it's over?
I like the holidays. It's what I don't like is that it's I was at Home Depot a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't even Halloween, and they already had Christmas decorations up. I thought, man, that's really early. But I like the fact that people are celebrating. I like the fact that people are happy. I like the fact that people are singing songs, and you get to eat a lot of cool food. And I like to cook, so it's fun. I love the Christmas lights. So yeah, and as a kid, I was one of those kids that would just sit in front of the Christmas tree, just staring at the lights for hours. Not that I was curious about what the gifts were. I just thought it was beautiful. So I really just enjoyed that. So yeah, I guess, yeah, I get it. And then when it's over, it's over.
All right, we got another question for Captain. Should the Browns just give up? I'm a big Browns fan.
By the way, how are the Browns doing?
They're 4-3 right now. We've had quarterback injuries, so I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, that's better than what the Raiders or the Rams or Chargers are doing. So listen, I have a lot of friends that are from Cleveland, and I think that for the Cleveland Brown fans, I would definitely love them to succeed. So I don't ever say give up, man. You gotta go out there. It's a tough game, and maybe it'll just harden you. I feel bad for the fans that have to deal with a team losing all the time. That's rough, but. Weren't they like 0-16 a couple of years ago or something?
I was there.
Okay, so this is improvement. You're moving. You're getting better.
Oh yeah. All right. Would you mind if I referred you to a buddy who really found you fascinating who does another show?
Absolutely, sure.
All right, cool. Captain, I will give you his mail. And to end it on this, you may have mentioned this before. What do you got in the works? What do you got coming up?
Well, obviously, we're working on Ancient Aliens. About to start the new season of that. Curse of Oak Island. I'm just maybe a third of the way through the new season. I've got those video games I was talking about earlier. Obviously going to be in Vegas in about a week. People that are in the area that are interested in hearing me on an Ancient Aliens panel should head over to the Luxor Hotel. It's the November 10th, 11th, and 12th, I think, whatever that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That'll be fun. I tend to work quite a bit, knock on wood, fortunately. And especially now, this is a very, very busy time of the year. I'm hoping that the actors' strike will end soon so we can get back and doing that stuff. That would be nice. It would be fun to start doing some TV shows again, and some films again. I enjoy that. I worked with a fellow recently who directed the movie The Creator. This was before the actors went on strike. He ends up he's the director, a huge fan of Ancient Aliens. He and I have become good friends. So there's always something in the pipeline for me, thankfully. So I feel very blessed and very fortunate, and I get to actually have conversations with people that are, for right now, interested in what I have to say.
That's awesome. Well, we'd like to thank Mr. Robert Clotworthy for coming out. Appreciate it. Joining us over at Captain's after this. Don't forget, Tuesday at 7:30, we're going to have the Weed Victory Party. Vote yes on issue 2 on Tuesday, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye. And